What page is it on? Because I don't have the. I can use this. What page are we on?
In a minute.
What is it?
112. Here.
You don't want to use it? All right, fine. Okay, so on page 112, in the Chayenu for Friday's Tanya portion, the 30th day of Nisan, Rosh Chodesh, first day of Rosh Chodesh Iyar, April 17th. In pedestrian speak, April 17th. Okay, so we are in the middle of chapter 43. Let's give a little bit of a quick flow how we got here, because Tanya, while it's the benefit of learning it each day, it's nice to know the flow how we got here. In general, as we mentioned before, the chapters 39 to the end are a little more inner world focus about Tanya. They're not as famous as the first 40 chapters of the book. You familiar with Tanya? You've learned that a little bit before?
Yeah.
What do you know about Tanya from your anything? Remember, like, main point that you took out of it?
Well, I remember like the parts of a soul.
Soul.
Yeah.
So that's the beginning, the parts of the soul, explain the two souls, the fight and the never-ending struggle between the animal soul and the godly soul. And then we segue into, like, okay, why do we have to have all this? Like, why does God make us in the way of the struggle of the two souls? So we get a little existential and we say, because that's the point. Why is the point? Because God desired to have a dwelling in the lowest realm, in the realm of the physical world, where God is concealed. That's what means lowest. It's the most concealment. And despite that, because of the concealment, we have free choice, and we can make a partnership and invite God in through our daily actions and overcoming the temptations of our animal soul. In other words, at the end of the day, Judaism is very, very action-oriented. However, this is where these series of chapters say you cannot neglect your inner world. You can't neglect your inner, we call in Hebrew, kavana, your intention, because if you neglect that, you might be doing the work, you might be transferring the world, but you're not revealing God. How do you reveal God? Through your kavana. Now, kavana, which is a term for, generally speaking, we mean intention when you pray. Some people say they have kavana. What do they mean? They say, "Oh, I'm like not spacing out. I'm not like thinking about my to-do list in the middle of the davening." But a little deeper, it's that you're having it's elevating your intention of why you're doing this. How do you elevate why you're doing Torah mitzvahs? How do you elevate your intention while you're doing Torah mitzvahs? So the way you elevate by doing Torah mitzvahs is through your emotions. When a person has a base, various levels of awareness of God, they then develop awe and love. So that's how we're in this kind of more psycho-analytical part of Tanya. However, so in chapter 43, which we started yesterday, we talked about the four categories of emotions that a person can develop, can develop at various times in the relationship with God. There's two of awe, the lower awe and the higher awe. And just to summarize, the lower awe is a fundamental first step. It's the step of a basic awareness about God's greatness, infinity, and how we are finite and small compared to that. That creates a sense of humility, awe. We translate it as fear, but really it's awe. And that is a basic. Everybody's going to have that. Like, that's a must. You don't have to know anything about Judaism. You got to know the basic. And the Rabbi would always promote chapter 41, the first 17 lines is an amazing daily meditation. I actually have a card they made of it. Like, it's in my tefillin bag. It's like the 17 lines, because it's very, very basic. A person has to know how they have to have awe. You have to be a servant. You have to be committed in this, in your role as an ambassador of Hashem. You have awe. You think about God a little bit. It awakens a basic sense of, oh my gosh, I'm chosen to be an ambassador of the infinite God.
Wow.
I'm committed to that. We said the second level yesterday was the higher level awe. The higher level awe is really intellectual. It's a person that really can focus in the scaffolding of, really what Kabbalah talks about Hashem in various levels. That's a higher level appreciation of Hashem. Not everybody can do that, but we work towards a little more knowledge. Now we're talking about today's Tanya about the two levels of love. Okay, so the way I'm going to translate, then I'm going to give a commentary. Now, in love too, there are two grades: Ahava Rabbah and Ahavat Olam. If you notice in the prayer book, the various prayer books before Shema, we say this word. It's in the, I'm going to give the prayer book in front of you, but it says there's an argument in, the Siddur is pretty much 95% the same by every different group, Ashkenaz and Sfardim. However, there is an argument about the blessing before Shema we say every day. Is it called Ahavat Olam, which means everlasting love that God showed upon us, or is it Ava Rabbah, which is an abundant love? So Sfardim and Hasidim pick Ahavat Olam, and I believe in Ashkenaz they do Ava Rabbah. I think I haven't looked at the Ashkenaz Siddur in a while, but I think that's what. What's the difference? Everlasting love, abundant love. It's all about the rest of the words. Hashem has love for the Jewish people throughout history. But this is an example where you see there's a big difference of a simple change in terms. Ahava Rabbah is an overabundant love. It's a bursting love that a person can have for God. So he says it's a love of delight and ecstasy, meaning it's a love of God which delights in him. There's no other desire or goal present, such as the desire to attach to God or expire. We're talking people that were tzaddikim, righteous at such a high level that they literally, they all they cared about was being in a constant state of connection to God. It is a fiery flame that rises of itself. In other words, this is an interesting note, that man does not, you can't create this level of, on page 112, you can't create this level of ecstasy. It comes from above by way of a gift to the one who's in perfect awe. We said awe is the first steps of a relationship. Just like in a marriage, there has to be respect, then there can be love. As it's known from the saying of the rabbis of blessed memory, it is the way of the man to search for the woman. They talk about how, I forget the context there, but, in the Talmud, the simple level, but in the deeper level, you should see what it means here. Any questions? Is this my, because it's the middle of a long thesis, but is it kind of flowing?
Yeah.
Okay. So just to tell you the background of the Gemara, when it talks about this, because everything in Tanya is a commentary of a commentary of a commentary of the Torah. But it's not commentary, it's not just nuance, it's connecting the dots. In the Gemara, it says, in Brachot, it says these two versions of you've loved us with Avat Olam, or you've loved us with Ava Rabbah. And this rest of the blessing is pretty much the same if you look in the prayer book. A number of the rabbis, they reconcile these two texts. Some rule, we say the version of Ava Rabbah in the morning and Avot Olam in the evening prayer. Others rule we do Avot Olam on weekdays and Ava Rabbah on Shabbat. But on the deeper level, we said, what's the difference of the two things? Who cares? Because the abundant love is a love of delight. It's not a sense. So another way of saying this, there's like a love sick, like someone who feels you love something, you really want it. This is not that. This is like, it's like I'm with Hashem. I'm just in a constant state of joy and happiness because I know I'm already connected. When a person sees a beautiful flower, gorgeous, exotic, I want to pick it and take it home. But a person who appreciates flowers for what they are is happy just to let it be. I'm just happy it exists. That would be an example of Ava Rabbah. So this is an interesting idea. So everything is not just in humans, but in everything in the entire universe is about masculine and feminine energy. Talks about that, and the way God created everything is through a combo of masculine and feminine energy on a cosmic spiritual level. So, but to simplify it, that love is referred to in Kabbalah as man or male. As it's written, he remembered his loving kindness.
Well, how come it has a feminine ending?
Ava, good question. Let's see what Rabbi Steinsaltz says, just to see if we can make sense of this very quickly. Okay, so to be honest, the way it says here, it's not giving you a lot of understanding conceptually. It's saying these are the way the terms are referred to. Zachar chasto, says he remembered his kindness. They do a zachar also means male. The male is the kindness because love kindness is one quadrant of relationship, and awe reverence is the other side. So they don't really give you like an understanding of why does a male represent the masculine energy, the love. My guess, without the little that I can remember, is that a man is a seeker, is a even the hunter gatherer idea, right? Is that there's a certain level of like attracted to something and going after it. That's love. That'll be an understanding.
I don't know if it's love. Why do you call that love?
I don't know. I gave you my basic,
It's above your
guess.
pay grade. It's above your pay grade. I don't.
But it would take more time to be in my pay grade.
Okay.
Anyways, but Isha,
time intensive.
We say every night in before we make Kiddush, Eishes Chayil, the poem from Shlomo HaMelech, Eishes Chayil Miyimtza, a woman of valor who can find. And at the end we say, Sheker Achein Be'avel Lo Yefi, Isha Yiras Hashem, that a woman who fears God, vanity, false is vanity and beauty. That a woman that has reverence for God is the one that's really prized. So we see there again, without explaining why the feminine equals more the awe reverence quadrant, it just says you see that Isha Yiras Hashem. I have to think about why. I mean, it's kind of beyond the. It's more of a side point. Anyways, we'll have to another class on masculine, feminine energy. That's a whole different. But anyways,
well, even the concept of masculine and feminine energy. I mean, that's a very good point. But it's hard to get it in my gut to understand what it is.
Fair. That's fair. And the truth be told, that's the in Torah in yeshiva, we do two. Typically, I think most yeshivas have a morning Talmud, time, and then a afternoon Talmud time. Typically, I think, this is my experience, the morning Talmud time is what we call Talmud Li'iyuna, which means Gemara, where you're really analyzing it. You're not going fast. You could spend a month on one page with all the commentaries and so on. And then there's in the afternoon, because you can't spend your whole yeshiva doing, 10 pages. You want to cover ground of breadth of knowledge. So we told Gemara Lagirsa, which means just more the basic translation and understanding more of the breadth of knowledge. In the morning Tanya we do the daily Tanya, which is finishing the whole book every year. It's relatively quick going through all this material, so we're doing it more on a broad knowledge. But you bring up points, and we try to answer the question as we can. But it's really, we can move aside, accept the fact that masculine and feminine is love and awe, just a proof from the verse. We can move on. Without the prerequisite of fear, it is impossible to attain the level of avarabba, which is holy, saintly, tzaddik level in rapture, love to God, a love of delight. They say it's actually a reward of someone who's so refined in their reverence for God, in what they can control, that God rewards them with a glimpse of olam haba. That it's almost like this is where the soul feels in heaven. This like love, this like delight. So this person who's so refined in this world, they get a glimpse of that, and they have access to this love of delight, this avarabba. And you can't get it without being, refining yourself with reverence and respect. For this love originates from the realm of Atzilut. Atzilut is the highest of the spiritual worlds. Again, it's otherworldly, to suffice it at that, where there's no sundering or separateness, God forbid. So in Kabbalah, I just want to explain to you, Kabbalah, Tanya is not a Kabbalah book. It's actually a manual of how to understand self, mission, and it has everything you need to do, how to show up in the best way you can. Understand self, how to do self-expression in a way that's aligned with God, the best. However, like all of Hasidic philosophy, it uses terminology from a lot of Torah. So it uses Talmud, it uses Tanakh, it uses Kabbalah. So Kabbalah, because Kabbalah is very cryptic. It's almost like physics, the way it's written. It's very code.
Right.
But he'll use the terms enough so we can a working knowledge, so we can understand what's going on spiritually in us and in the world, so we can function, navigate. So there's 4 worlds in Kabbalah. It breaks the entire cosmos from God pre-creation by God's self. There's nothing else. And to the bottom, to us, where there's a world that is so independent looking that conceals the presence of God and feels separate and independent. In between, there are there's a total of 4 worlds. The first world, the highest, is called Atzilut. Atzilut means it's a world that, the way I would understand it, is it's God projecting himself into a world, but it's very conscious, like a hologram, where it's obvious that it's existed. The picture is nothing more than a expression of the source of light. So it exists, but it's totally aware of its source. Then there's the 3 other levels, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah, which is various degrees of a little more sense of self, even if it knows it comes from somewhere. And the lowest world, we don't know where we come from. We totally, we feel separate. Anyways, without the prerequisite of, okay. And again, the bottom line is, this love is not so important because I don't think we can bank on being that perfected that we're going to get this level of delight in God every moment. But just to give the wholeness, he mentions it. However, the next thing on 113, Ahavat Olam, which is the everlasting love that God has shown us. What does it refer to in our own emotions? Is that which comes from understanding and knowledge of the greatness of God, the blessed Ein Sof who fills all worlds, animating them with a permeating mode of vitality, which is limited and tailored to the capacity of each creature, and also encompasses all worlds. Another term, on a regular Friday morning, we were talking about these big terms. The way God relates to the world is spoken about in 2 terms. He fills all the worlds and he surrounds all the worlds. Everything is tailor-made, tapered energy to create a cup, a book, a lion, a sun. That's how God is giving his energy to create in very specific, to make a plurality. But then there's a way that God relates, that God's on a different plane. Everything is the same to God. So it's those 2 ways. And also before whom everyone is accounted as nothing at all, like the nullity of one utterance within the intelligence and soul, while it's still in the thought or in the desire of the heart, as has been explained above. We talked about an example to picture how imagine the author making a story, right? So J.K. Rowling coming up with Harry Potter, has the whole story, very intricate. The characters are very, very specific, but they're just a drop in her mind, right? So too, in a way, by us, all the world, we're just a story in God's mind. And a story compared to the endless ability to think of a million, endless stories is, the example of 1 to infinity. So we exist, but we're also insignificant compared to the source of existence. But God chooses us, even though by ourselves we're insignificant. God chooses to have a relationship with us. So that's the. So, as a matter of fact, I was learning another. I'm taking a course on some Hasidic topics at night. So there's a famous in the later chapters of Tanya we've done in the past, a famous one about explaining suffering. Very, very interesting. So I'm not going to get into that topic, but it mentions there the whole purpose of creation is that we should find God. That we should not get fooled by the exterior stuff we deal with and thinking that's what we really want. What we really, really want is a relationship with God. We need stuff to live. We need all the blessings we need, but what we really want is that. And that's actually the purpose, is to come to that awareness. So he's saying here this idea that a person who does the meditation work of thinking about, everything doesn't exist in a vacuum. It comes from somewhere, comes from God, and everything is insignificant compared to the source of life. As a result of such contemplation, we talked about that creates an awe that I am very small. Like I'm nothing. I'm a speck compared to the infinite, with infinite consciousness. But there also is love that comes from there. The love that's in the soul, which is a matter, of course, divests itself of its garments, meaning it will not clothe itself in anything of pleasure or enjoyment, whether physical or spiritual, to love it and to not desire anything whatsoever in the world other than God alone, the source of the vitality of all enjoyments. In other words, when a person has a real, this is not Tanya, this is not limited to Hasidus or Kabbalah. This is in the ABCs of Judaism. In the beginning of the Shulchan Aruch, it talks about before you pray, to contemplate God, to feel how we are small compared to the greatness of God. The Rambam starts his whole magnum opus talking about understanding a working knowledge of God. Because when you have that, it changes actually what you're here to do. Like, I'm not here just to, make money and have a family in life and have all the blessings, whatever I need. There's a deeper component to everything. And all the stuff that I want naturally, because I am a body and the body needs stuff and wants stuff, they're all in of themselves. They're nullified in reality and accounted as nothing at all compared to the source of life within them. There being no matter of comparison or similitude, I don't know what that means, between them, God forbid, between all worldly pleasures and God, the source of vitality, just as there's no comparison between that which is absolutely nothing and everlasting life. That last page, 114, as he proves it from we see this, that King David said this, right? In one verse, we just say it in Tehillim. We don't get, King David was a great mystic. This is what he was thinking when he said, whom have I in heaven to love other than God? And there's nothing upon earth that I desire with you. When I'm with you, all I want is you. And the next verse continues, my flesh and my heart yearn for you, rock of my heart. As the various levels of love a Jew may attain by contemplating God's greatness will be explained later.
So King David said this?
He said a pithy, poem, a line, and like everything that the great, they wrote it with divine inspiration, high level people. And they weren't just saying poetry. They were saying, the relationship with God. But the Alter Rebbe, the author of the Tanya, is showing a little bit of.
Okay. This is Psalm 73 is what they say here. It says verses 25 to 26. Okay, yeah. I got you.
You gotta look it up. Also, he whose soul's attribute of love is not vested at all in physical or spiritual indulgence, that person is able to kindle his soul as with burning coals, an intense fire and a flame that soars heavenward by contemplating the above mentioned matters, as I'll explain later on. I think he's saying that, we talked about this earlier, is that till now we talked about awe for the most part, I believe. And that's not by mistake. It wasn't just, an encyclopedia. Awe A comes before, L, that wasn't the reason. We said awe is the foundation for our relationship with our infinite creator. Because otherwise, if it's first about love, even if I love God, it's about how I feel. So there's a sense of self. The first sense is we have to understand what we're dealing with here. Infinite creator, finite speck. We are in awe of that. We are humbled by that. We submit to that. However, now we've mentioned today that there's a wonderful love that comes from there as well. Because then then the person understands what they really deep down want is not a temporary feeling through all the stuff and even the good blessings they have, but they want what do you call it? They want a deeper connection to God. So I hope that made sense.
God.
That ends the Tanya.